is 350,000 companies that need to transition in the next 10 years. This is a global problem in the...
Welcome to another episode from Beyond Now. Today we have Giles Karhan from Valloop, Australia. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
Thank you for having me.
So when I did some research on your background, I have seen that you have been into traditional finance.
Yep.
And then including founding and then also exiting Rocking Horse.
That's correct, yeah.
What was the most important moment that you have decided that you have to shift to building more platforms like employee ownership?
I think it really came down to what was I going to do next. And there is a real gap in the market, in the whole economy. So globally, the economy, there is a huge problem, and I read a report by National Australia Bank who said that there is 350,000 companies that need to transition in the next 10 years. And that's in Australia alone. In the US, it's over 15 million. That wasn't from that report, but from other reports. So this is a global problem in the transition of ownership from the baby boomers to the next gen. And how was that going to happen? And with my experience, and what I've done, I know the private equity world quite well, and they can't cope with that sort of problem because there's just not enough money in there, and a lot of these companies aren't companies that are going to shoot the lights out, 30 IRRs, that sort of thing. So there was a gap in the market, and I met at a Wholesale Investor event, I met Stephen Greenwood, and it sort of I started to understand what he was offering, and I believe it's truly the best solution because it is scalable. The problem is scale. How can you actually transfer ownership of trillions of dollars in such a short space of time? We've never seen it before, and with reducing birth rates, will we ever see it again? I don't know.
It's amazing because Valloop actually cares about the business legacy rather than the profit as well. So I was thinking, how do you make sure that this purpose-driven idea is part of the company's vibe?
Yeah.
You would say?
Look, I think the legacy is one of those forgotten parts of building a business. I've done it, and it took me a long. The exit was very quick in the end. So with Rocking Horse, I was in, I was there, out, and that exit was very quick and painless in the way. And I think, but I still stayed on, and I still do consult back because, you built it. It was your idea. Yeah. You do have that sort of, it's very difficult for, I believe, and I look from my own experience, to actually pull yourself away from something like that. I've got 4 children, it's my 5th, and some days it's probably my 1st. It depends. And I think it's a hard thing to pull yourself away. So knowing that the business is going to run, and it's all the employees that you've brought on the dream. When you bring in a new employee, you're really selling the dream of what you want this company to be. Otherwise, you'll lose everyone very quickly. So I think that's important, and having that security for them, and that knowing that they're now going to take it on and they're going to grow it, and I think is really important. And they have the chance to build something from that. So they might pivot, they might do different things with it. But there are very few companies, I believe, that go through a full transition with name change and all that sort of thing. So there's always going to be that, if they stuff it up, they stuff it up. But at least you're giving them that opportunity without having to put down their house to buy it, without having to put up a whole lot of cash to be actually able to own the company. It's I think it will be very empowering for these people. Some obviously won't cope, and that's just human nature. Some will think that they want the pressure but don't, and that's life. You get to get those. but I think for a large number, they'll really be able to drive it and drive the business forward with new ideas and new vigour.
As it was your first exit, is there anything that you regret, that you wish you knew before exiting?
Not so much with the business side, more the product side. There was some issues with the product that meant that it was, and it wasn't just me. All my investors, and some of them have been in private equity and venture capital and debt for more years than they probably want to admit. And no one saw there was a few issues with the actual product. Not that it didn't work, and it worked very well and it served a purpose, but the profitability was a little bit more difficult than we'd expected. And so really we ended up selling to a strategic investor who wanted more of the market share. And so it worked very well for everyone. And I like to think that sale was a win for everyone. And I truly believe Valloop is a win for everyone. I don't see anyone that loses from the Valloop model because, everyone wins, including the economy, including the senior management and the employees, and we win. And it is and I like. That makes me a bit more warm and fuzzy, I guess.
So you've met many business doing the same thing as you, and have you seen the psychological shift behind this exiting part? And then when it comes to not only personal exit, but actually embracing the legacy of the employee ownership?
The psychological shift from owner, once they realise that they're going and they need to go and they want to go, that is a big shift for someone, because in a lot of cases it's going to be retirement. So at least with what Valloop does is they provide a surety over the sale price. So they're actually saying to the owner, okay, wipe your hands of it. You can work out over a number of years, you can leave today, you can do whatever makes you feel better. So that psychological shift is, okay, I'm going to work down, I'm going to slowly make sure everyone's comfortable, everything's good, and then I'm going to exit, or maybe they'll just go, I've got some health issues I need out now. But what they know is that the price that they've negotiated with the senior managers is paid, and it's going to be paid over a number of years, but it's guaranteed. There is a surety over it. So that psychological shift is a lot easier. So it's a lot easier for them to say, okay, I'm going to get paid, I'm going to work it out, it's not the end of my life, it's the start of a new chapter. And I think that makes it a little bit easier than if it's with a private equity exit, there's a payment up front and then there's a performance. So they're not really exiting at all for a number of years. There's still the pressure, and it's potentially a lot greater because there is that performance pressure that if they fail on that, that's it. There is no, they get donuts on that. Well, then they're in trouble for the rest of their lives. So I think it is an easier transition. The psychological differences with employees moving up is probably the bigger part of it. Them actually moving into owners is, I think, probably the bigger leap. And never know till you try. Those sort of adages come become quite poignant at this time. I found sort of owning and running a business, I enjoyed it. I could never go back to working for someone else. But I think there are a lot of people out there who probably don't like it. But that's also why we bring on a number of them. So, we're looking at a lot of businesses that are either one or two owners, so they're very tightly held, to hopefully 3, 4, 5, with everyone having their roles and responsibilities. And naturally from there you'll have one that probably steps up more to be the leader, and the rest, working within the business, but as an owner of the business. And then we also make sure that there's an employee ownership trust at the bottom, so that everyone is participating. And there are so many reports and studies done on is that better for a business? And I think most of them say it is. If you're an owner in the business and you have shares in the business, you're going to try just that little bit harder in most instances.
I think this one will be a bit of a unique one, but I used to have my own company in Mongolia as well. And when I decided to move to Australia, my company was just on its own. There were a lot of people asking to continue operating my company, or there were employees who wanted to continue it. But back then, I think I didn't have that much of a consulting or a lawyer or whatever it is to measure the company, value it and everything. So I just decided to leave it as it is. No one is continuing it. However, for the last 3 years, still there are clients who are still asking for me, like, are you doing your business? I think there will be cases like that rather than retirement as well. 100%,
1,000%. I have an example quite similar with my father, in that he had a business and he needed to, he was retiring, but it's the same. There wasn't this product. So it was either, he could try and get his sort of senior management team, which was 2 guys at the time, to come in and try and buy it, but they had mortgages, they couldn't afford to buy it. So he ended up selling it to a competitor for the spare parts. That was it. So I think there are so many examples in the past where this wasn't an option. But this really provides a new option for so many people like yourself who, what do you do with the business? You have to, you just shut it down because you don't have anyone sort of telling you, you can do this. And then a lot of the people who were probably working for you were younger, and they would have gone, we need to save for a deposit for a house, or we don't really have much cash because we love to party on a Saturday night. And so, which a lot of young kids do. And so I would never have thought about doing it. I mean, when I started Rocking Horse, I had to raise money pretty quickly, so I didn't have much to survive on otherwise. And so with this, because the business actually pays to the vendor, and so what you're doing is you're basically putting very little down up front, and you're saying, okay, here's a little bit, and the rest we paid by the business out of profit for the next 5 years. And it's a number that's set. It's not a performance number. It's set. If it's 5 times EBITDA and the EBITDA is $200,000, you say it's 5 times that. It's $1 million. You'll get it in instalments, but at the end of the day, if we can't pay it, the insurance the surety kicks in, which acts like an insurance product.
I was thinking on the other side of this transaction, because one of my friends actually said, you are so brave to leave company and everything here and then just move on to Australia, because a lot of people are trying to build a business and they don't have any idea. But you already had the idea, but you're leaving it. So I was thinking maybe there's another person who don't have any idea but who wants to own a business. Would you be
absolutely
the connection?
I'm now working on a transaction now for a company where the gentleman consults. The father's already retired. He's given it to his son. Son has zero interest in it, and he just wants to sell it. And so my friend, whose actual brother works in the business, they've gone, hang on, we can use Valloop for the 2 of us and one of the other senior managers in the organisation to buy it, and then and own it that way, which is exactly that example where you've got someone who, and there's a woman who sort of runs a podcast about this sort of thing, an American. And she, it's about, and I've started getting on my feed for Instagram or something, people who are saying, well, if you buy profitable businesses, you come in, you buy them on a certain multiple, you can, and you buy 5 of them, and in different fields. But what it actually gets you in the end is a really good income. And this is exactly what we can do with Valloop. You can, as I said to one guy he does outsource CFO. So he's seeing a whole lot of companies, a working number of them. So he could buy 5 of them, 6 of them, 10 of them, 20 of them. It doesn't really matter, and he just has a part of each of them. He performs the CFO function for them, and then he has other managers doing other things. But he ends up with these bits of all these different companies, which is the way that we work, in that we do have equity at the end of the day, and we want dividends. Mm-hmm. So the only control that we really have is, once the deferred consideration is repaid, dividend payout ratios. So there is a certain amount of profit every year that has to be paid out to dividends. That dividends also going to the other shareholders, not just us. Mm-hmm. So everyone is profiting, mm-hmm. And it's quite an important part of it. But it still means that everyone is getting a dividend, which if in a profitable business, it's a great thing. Whereas previously, $1 million in profit and probably 800's going to the owner, and the rest, and everyone's getting a little bit. So, and that's one thing that the senior managers need to think about, is that they might have to forego that small profit for the small dividend or bonus for a short period of time. But once the deferred consideration's paid, then they get big dividends, because it's not just 200 grand, it's $1 million that's now being shared. So it can be, and also I should mention on that, then they have the equity. So the equity, let's say they have, they've bought the business at a 5 times EBITDA. Mm-hmm. Well, now they're an owner of a business which is 5 times the EBITDA, which is going to be significantly more than they had beforehand. Mm-hmm. So you're spreading the wealth across.
Obviously, there has to be a criteria, and what kind of sector, what market are you aiming for right now?
At this point in time, totally sector agnostic. Mm-hmm. Don't care. We just want more. So we want to really be doing 100 of these a year. We think with 350,000 over the next 10 years, if we can get 1,000, that would be an amazing result for us. And there is no reason why we can't. We're fully scalable. So at this point in time, our reinsurers, who are AAA rated, global reinsurers, have put no limits on sectors. There will be at some stage. Mm-hmm. I have no doubt that they'll have to be. I mean, we've got 100 billion in surety that we can write, so we have a lot. And I think they'll start asking questions when we have 200-300 companies within the portfolio. Mm-hmm. But that also stretches over time. So, there's a lot to go. We've only just started. We're only 6 weeks in. Mm. So, we're really early on. And we'll see. But at this point in time, there's no limits. I mean, we're looking at a $300 million transaction and a $2 million transaction. So we've got huge scope to work with. The company's trying for 1 million employees by 2030. Mm-hmm. So a million employees. Can we? Yeah. Change it? Sorry, 300,000 employees by 2030 is what they want to get in Australia. Mm-hmm. So they want 300,000 employees who are now business owners.
I think this will be a very good networking connection, because we're doing a business exit summit in a month. I'm not sure when this interview will be published, but we're doing it on the 9th and 10th of September. And the biggest benefits of attending that event, I think, would be to meet you and get advice. And it's all going to be, we don't have any paid speakers at all. It's going to be all experience and then sharing with them. So are you going to be there? What's your expectation?
Yes, I am. I've spoken to Steve about being there. I think, I've looked and spoken to Steve around that summit quite a bit. And I think there are some wonderful people there. And the beauty about what we're doing is that we're not the only solution. When you've got 15 million businesses in the US, 350 in Australia, they're two countries. What about the rest of the world? This is not a problem for just Australia and America. I mean, the UK, Europe, everywhere has got exactly the same problem. So there are going to be other strategies out there. There's your simple private equity. There's, I spoke to some guys the other day who are going to be doing small private equity deals, bringing 50% of the capital and 50% from an industry player, and then buying it and running it, putting in their own teams. There's a company in the US called Teamshare who let employees buy at certain stages. So every year or two, they provide a little bit more equity to the employees, and so they're able to buy more equity in the company. Unfortunately, for some of these strategies, they're not scalable. If you've got to put in your own management team, it immediately means you're not scalable, because how can you get enough people to run all these businesses that have experience, that have the technical knowledge, that have the right skills basically to run random businesses? We're looking at vending machine business at the moment, a berry business, a financial services, an insurance. I don't have someone who knows, a farmer who knows a whole lot about berries, to be honest. I know a lot of people, and a lot of people, agricultural people as well. So I think those businesses, though, don't get me wrong, have absolute place. That's great. If you can find those businesses and teams, but they're looking for hockey stick revenue, or they're looking for the private equity model, they've got to satisfy their investors. Technically, in a way, our investors the insurance, and they just want the money to be. They just want to be insuring things, right? So they're not looking for revenue; they just need their insurance paid for. So it's not. So we've just got a different investor that isn't looking for 30 IRRs and things like that. So that's what makes, I guess, ours scalable. I haven't seen a model out there that it is scalable, although I believe, KKR are coming out with a product. Don't know what it is. We'll see. But there's so many companies that need this that, we can't even think about doing a quarter of them, let alone a half or three quarters of them.
Even though that employee ownership is growing lately, but there's still big tax and regulatory issues. What are the main legislative or institutional challenges holding you back? I
mean, that is definitely, the tax side is definitely the capital gains tax. So I was very surprised the other day to learn that New Zealand doesn't have capital gains tax. So our product should work so well in New Zealand, and we are starting to move over there and speaking to people, because I think New Zealand's going to be a very good market for us. That is going to be the first issue that I think governments are going to, well, especially the Australian government's going to have to look at. And some of the, and I would like to see maybe, rather than at the point of sale, capital gains tax could be paid over a period of time, rather than, you could defer some of it. And, I've seen some financial products that you can do it with, but then you start getting really technical for people who probably aren't financially as literate as these products probably require. And then around licensing, and who has licenses and who doesn't, and what licenses are required for certain businesses. And so that, whilst it's not a hurdle, it can be a bit of a handbrake. And I think that'll need to be looked at, but again, it's more of a timing issue.
You were mentioning before that this transition actually helps the economy as well.
Yes.
But I was thinking, how does it help with the local business ecosystem? Because
otherwise, what do these businesses do but shut down? And so if you have mass shutdown of businesses, yeah, fine. Someone might pick up the business somewhere else, and it is going to be a huge transition on the economy, and will it recover? Will there be enough cleaners? Will there be enough berry makers? Will there be and then if you have too much power with a small number of companies, well then pricing goes up, and there isn't the competitive strain on products. So who wants an oligopoly or in a certain field that is potentially might be huge, but we talk about the cost of living at the moment. Well, without competition, it would be a lot worse.
Mm-hmm. You actually were mentioning that you're empowering the employees to actually step up.
Yep.
And in your view, what's the most important long-term benefit of giving workers the equity shares?
I mean, obviously, first and foremost, financial. I believe they will be able to participate more in the profitability of the company, and so if it's a profitable company, great. Everyone has that financial, but it's also there is a sense of accomplishment. I truly believe, coming from experience, being able to be an owner in a business. I worked at ANZ and I had ANZ shares, but it's not the same as being in a small business and owning shares in a small business where the ownership is still, where it's still tight because it's a small business. It's not employing thousands upon thousands of people. So I think that on the self-confidence, and as I think I said before, some people won't like the pressure. I get that. Mm-hmm. But in a business, I think where you are a shareholder, where you are a business owner, I think that there's still the ability for people to step back a little bit from that ownership role. If you have others that are who are more confident and more willing to take on those roles with a little bit more vigour and a little bit more gusto, maybe is the word. Mm-hmm. And it will really come down to the size of the company and the personalities within the senior management team, really, who need to be able to drive and take people along for the journey. And so I see that as a real benefit for the business. But also, back in the old days, in the broking days, the soft dollar, where you say, I'll spend that, it's not really my money, I don't really care. When you're an owner, I think you start thinking about that a little bit more. And so you start thinking, what is best for the business? Because in the end, that's what's best for me. And so that will have quite an effect on the way that they think about their roles. And the accomplishment, I think, that when they get a dividend check or a little bonus at the end of the year because the business has done well, rather than a pat on the back and a Christmas party, being more supported through that, through financially at least, I think will be quite empowering.
That reminds me of one of the people I know actually gave away his company's 49% to his employees. So that was a random decision. He didn't even get paid or anything. He didn't do anything. He just gave shares to each one of them. And then after 2 years, he noticed that it was 800% more profit to the company.
Yep, correct. and that is the benefit of giving people. When I've started all my business, main one was Rocking Horse. When I started that, I gave away equity to the first employees because I needed them to be motivated and to want to work hard like me. And I think it's really important. It's something that I naturally just did. Now, when you're starting a business, there are other issues, but when it's because, will people perform, is the biggest issue, and you give away equity to someone who then goes, no, I couldn't be bothered and leaves. So you have to have, that's when you're starting a business, but when the business is more mature, and is already up and running and, has been around for quite a while. I mean, some of these businesses that we're looking at now have been around 20, 30 years. So people know their roles and know their responsibilities, and so providing them with that little bit more of a, pep in their step, I guess you could say, to actually try to do better. And because if they do better in their role and the company does better, they do better as well.
Mm-hmm. So how do you see Valloop Australia's future, maybe in the nearest 5 to 10 years? How do you see the market expanding as well?
So, look, the market will expand for companies no matter what, of these sorts of companies. It has to. I mean, there has to be the transition because human nature, people need to retire and leave business. So 100% the market is going to grow. Mm-hmm. I've got no question about that. Valloop, our goal is to have a whole lot more people owning shares in companies, but also at the end, we want a portfolio of companies. And then we can, help some, guide some to do better things, bigger things. I find that a lot of fun, thinking if I have a portfolio where we own little bits of 500, 700 companies, that's fun. You can start helping them. Some of them go, oh, guys, have you met this person, and if you guys joined up, you could do this and that. And, I think we'd have a seat at the table at a lot of companies. And with that seat, who knows what we could do. I think it's a lot of fun. And so I'm looking forward personally to that. But I think there's just a huge, there's in funds management, and I've seen a lot. I don't believe that there has been a company or a fund that has owned a huge number of bits of SMEs ever. Mm-hmm. And so, if we could have 300-500 companies where we own little bits, I think that'll be a lot of fun.
Thank you very much for this conversation, Giles.
Thank you,
it was very transparent and honest. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.